Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission for Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Ms. Allen,
Present.
Mr. Foster,
Present.
Hanson is absent. Ms. McSwain,
Present.
Mr. Peterman,
Present.
Mr. Rice,
Present.
and Mr. Barham is also absent. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Before you have the minutes from our regular meeting on April 22nd, 2025. We will need a vote for acceptance. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Barham is absent. Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Hanson is absent. Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Mr. Peterman, and Ms. Allen.
Yes,
Here, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0.
thank you. Moving on, we have our 2026 CPIC operating budget. Madam Treasurer.
Only thing I saw, other than what we discussed the last time was you had asked Madam Chair for, an amount for surveys,
Yes.
and I don't see where that was included.
Treasurer, you're correct. We had not programmed anything and we did not receive an amount on it. So if that's something you'd like to amend and
Yes, I would like to look at the Starbase victory.
budget, we'll just need to know what that amount would be. And I think when decide to move forward, we just need to take note of that change.
Do you have a guesstimate of what we did an amount before? And I don't necessarily recall the amount that we did in the past. We did have a previous amount that we've given the Starbase.
I do believe at one point in the past, there was a $50,000 grant that was made.
All right. That's not bad.
That was when the program was expanding. I believe they were at that point in time expanding to incorporate, I think, some middle school programs. And they
They
had
were
some,
starting out the medical program. Okay, I do want to set an amount in for this. Now, do we have to provide that now? And so that we may be able to vote on it, or how can we proceed with that? Counselor?
You don't have to include it in the adopted budget. You can, when you decide on the amount, about the budget.
Okay. Is everybody okay with us, as we kind of have a discussion on the amount, amending the budget at a later date to include a, line item for Starbase?
I agree with that.
Yes. Okay, we'll do that then. So at this point, then we will need a motion and a second for the adoption of the FY 2026 CPIC operating budget. Motion and a second for adoption of the budget.
Motion.
You have a motion. Do we have a second? You have a motion and a second for the adoption of the FY 2026 CPIC operating budget. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Peterman.
Yes.
Ms. Allen.
Yes,
Here, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0.
thank you. We will next have a presentation by the Hampton Roads Military and Federal Facilities Alliance. Will you do the introduction, please, sir?
Sure. Well, today we have Rick Dwyer and Todd Nichols of the Harumpha Group, as it's known also. But it's obviously spelled out right there. These folks have been great partners in supporting, a supporting entity to our efforts in economic development. Great information feed and action steps on their part to protect and preserve our military installations that are here in Hampton Roads, which are significant. Both of these guys are seasoned military retired officers and know the lingo and the hallways of the Pentagon, I would say, pretty well, and other sort of. But with that, I'll allow you guys to share your background on what Harumpa does and maybe some updated information.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Charlie. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Charlie said, I'm Rick Dwyer. I'm the executive director of the Hampton Roads Military and Federal Facilities Alliance, which is a mouthful, which is why we are better known as Harumpa throughout the region, just because it's much easier to say than that really long name. But we are a regional advocacy organization that supports the military and federal presence all throughout Hampton Roads. As Charlie mentioned, both have military backgrounds. I'm retired Air Force, retired out of Langley Air Force Base. Back in 2016, was a career civil engineer officer in the Air Force, and then started working at Harumpa as the deputy director for Rear Admiral retired Craig Quigley. And then when he retired a few years ago, the board selected me to replace him, and that's when Todd joined the team. Following his 40-year career in the Navy as a nuke, with his last assignment being as the deputy commander here at the shipyard, Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth. So Todd helps me speak Navy throughout the region and translates all those Navy nautical terms and those kind of things for me. But we are the full complement of Harumpa, and as Charlie mentioned, we work to support and advocate for all of the military and federal installations all throughout the region. On the military side, again, depending on how many you count all the smaller annex and stuff, we have about 18 different military installations. 120,000 active duty civilian retired personnel, about 220,000 veterans, another 125,000 dependents. So a very large military presence, as you're all familiar with. But we also have several other federal assets with NASA Langley's Research Center, the Jefferson Lab, the Department of Energy Research Center up in Newport News, obviously the VA medical system and the National Park Service. And that entire enterprise accounts for roughly 40 to 43% of the regional economy, all of that federal spending, with DoD being by far the largest part of that, and the Navy being the largest part of the military spending. So Todd and I, we work with all those military and federal installation leadership, try to find out what kind of issues they're having, whether it's at the local level, the state level, or often is the case at the federal level. We will engage at all those different entities to try and help them be as successful as possible. Our mission now is the same as it was back in 2006 when the organization was formed. It's to sustain, protect, and grow the federal presence here in Hampton Roads. So we work every day with that. We work with all 6 members of our congressional delegation that represent the region. Our board of directors is composed of the mayors and county supervisors from all the 16 localities throughout the region, as well as 11 private sector companies. And that's who Todd and I work for, get our direction from as we work to support the military and federal presence. Any questions on that before I kind of just give a little bit of update what's going on in DC and some of the latest federal stuff?
Can you define,
Yes, sir.
where does Hampton Roads start and stop?
So we represent all the way up from Williamsburg, James City County, down through Virginia Beach, and over on the other side, down through Suffolk, Franklin, Isle of Wight, and Surrey County, and Southampton. So basically the same 16 localities that make up like the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, that area.
But not the Eastern Shore.
Not the Eastern Shore, that's correct. Yep.
And who do you interact with on the city of Portsmouth?
Mayor Glover is our board of, is the Portsmouth representative to the board of directors, but we also interact with Brian and Charlie quite a bit as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay, so just in terms of what's going on, and Councilman Hugel and Jim, I know you all have heard this recently with some of our PMAC updates. The House just passed the reconciliation bill last week. Within that, the Armed Services Committee had passed theirs. I think they were the first one to pass their portion of the reconciliation bill a couple of weeks ago, but it included a $150 billion boost to defense spending. Now that's normally reconciliation is supposed to be over a 10-year period, but the way they have written this bill, it is essentially until the end of 2029. So over the next, 4.5 years is where they want to infuse this additional funding. Of that 150 billion, the largest portion of it, nearly 34 billion, is going towards shipbuilding and ship repair. And things like, of course, they have, some additional, 2 additional destroyers, an additional, LPD amphibious, an additional America class LHA, as well as unmanned underwater vehicles and small and medium unmanned surface vessels. So a lot of additional funding for that, but they also have a lot of things for accelerated training and defense manufacturing, manufacturing and wiring and machining capacity, next gen shipbuilding techniques, advanced manufacturing techniques, additional dry dock capability, and all of these figures are, anywhere from $400 to $500 million for each of these different categories. And again, to invest in the nation's shipbuilding and ship repair capacity. And since the Hampton Roads Harbor is essentially the largest concentration of the Navy's ship repair capacity in the country, our region should benefit from some of this additional investment. Our organization is working along with the Hampton Roads Alliance, the Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable, the PDC, the chambers, several other organizations, Virginia Maritime Association, Virginia Ship Repair Association, trying to kind of keep an eye on this and as it progresses, but also then strategizing how can the region best capitalize on these potential opportunities that are going to be coming around for the next several years. Also, not just on the DoD side, the Coast Guard portion, so the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, in their portion of the reconciliation bill, also included quite a bit of investment for the Coast Guard and Coast Guard cutter production. There's about $15 billion for additional cutters for the Coast Guard. Now, $9 billion of that is for polar security cutters, icebreakers. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. So a lot of that investment will go to building additional icebreakers, which I think we only have 2 or 3 in the Coast Guard right now. So the intent is to expand that capacity.
One legit heavy.
Yeah. But there is also additional to support those new cutters. There's about $3.2 billion for shore infrastructure for where these cutters will be home ported. And given that base Portsmouth is the largest cutter home port in the Coast Guard, we expect eventually some of these new cutters will be coming here. And we know, and from talking with the base leadership there, in order to home port the newest cutters that the Coast Guard is bringing online, there will need to be some investments in the piers, some dredging that goes on there along the piers and in the turning basin there. So hopefully this infusion of cash will mean some of that investment can finally be made to the infrastructure there at base Portsmouth. Any questions on reconciliation or any of that additional funding? While we're talking about the Coast Guard, one of the things we've actually been pushing for several years and working with a congressional delegation on is getting the Coast Guard the same authority that the Department of Defense has for what are called IGSAs, or Intergovernmental Support Agreements. And what this does, this is a tool for DoD to use generally with their host communities, but it can be with any government entity, but it allows them to contract directly for services with, say, a local community. So for example, if the local community is providing, grass cutting services, trash pickup, road paving, those kind of things, instead of a military, instead of a DoD base having to go out and contract for that stuff on their own, if it makes economic sense, they can go directly to their host community and say, City of Hampton, we'd like you to pick, take care of trash services, grass cutting, those kind of things. So we've been, like I said, pushing on this to get the Coast Guard, because they are part of Homeland Security and not DoD, to get those same authorities down to the Coast Guard bases. There was a letter that we got Senator Kane and Senator Warner to sign on to in December to the Homeland Security Secretary, kind of asking, hey, how come, why hasn't DHS pushed this and taken advantage of this cost saving and efficiency measures like DoD has over the last decade or so? The answer they just got back is that the Homeland Security Department is working through the final stages of figuring out how to push that authority down to the Commandant of the Coast Guard, and then they can push it down to the bases. And talking with Captain Burris, the CO here at base Portsmouth, they have already said they're going to be a pilot for the Coast Guard. When this authority finally does get down, they will be one of the first ones to go forward with that. And so I imagine we can then help link them up with the city and think through what kind of areas would be advantageous for the base and the city to formally partner in that manner. So it's exciting news. But like I said, we've been pushing that for several years now, and hopefully we'll finally see it come to fruition. Finally, one of the things you've probably seen in the paper recently, while not down here on the south side of Portsmouth, seeing some discussion about the future of Fort Eustis and the Training and Doctrine Command, the 4-star headquarters that's up at Fort Eustis. What the Army has decided to do is given the Secretary of Defense's direction to cut the number of 4-star officers and general and flag officers in general across all of DoD, and the Coast Guard has said the same thing. They are going to start merging some of their major commands. So Training and Doctrine Command is led by a 4-star. Army Futures Command, which is headquartered in Austin, Texas, is also led by a 4-star. What the Army says is they want to merge those two commands together, and the 4-star that will lead that new command will be in Texas. Now, what we have learned through our contacts, not only at Fort Eustis but up in DC, is that does not mean the training and doctrine functions that are currently going on up at Fort Eustis are going to all move to Texas. There will be some personnel reductions, but more than likely, most of the same headquarters functions that go on up at Fort Eustis now will continue to go on up there. It'll probably just be led by the deputy 3-star commanding general will stay here and kind of run those functions from Fort Eustis. I say all that to say that we're going to see more of this in the coming months as DoD as the other services. So the Army is kind of the first one out of the chute with this. The Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard are all going to be going through similar drills where we're going to see impacts to our major commands and headquarters functions that are here in Hampton Roads. Right now, we're the only place in the country that has 4 different 4-star commands between the Army's Training and Doctrine Command, Air Force's Air Combat Command up in Langley, the Navy's Fleet Forces Command in Norfolk, and then NATO's Allied Command Transformation. So we are going to see some of those impacts of general officer, flag officer reductions, as well as some of the staff reductions, because they're trying to push more folks back out to their formations and get them out of type headquarters function. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. We worked very closely with the congressional delegation to highlight some of these things to them, so that they can provide the proper oversight and ask questions about, hey, what kind of analysis went into deciding to put the new 4-star headquarters in leased office space in Texas instead of a relatively new headquarters facility that we have right here at Fort Eustis. So we'll continue to work with the congressional delegation on those kind of things as we become aware of the services plans here in the region. Anything else in terms of high points lately that I left out?
No, well, with Coast Guard, the plus up with the Coast Guard, Rick mentioned that should also relate to an additional, we've heard up to 15,000 additional personnel coming on board in the Coast Guard as well. So the training centers here at Portsmouth should benefit from that too. Big throughput coming.
Yeah. Since we're in the largest concentration of Coast Guard personnel anywhere in the country, we got to believe that we're going to see some of that growth from the Coast Guard. Will obviously be here in Hampton Roads between base Portsmouth here and the training center up in Yorktown, as well as the headquarters functions.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
So a question from the audience, you guys tracking sure on relocation?
Yep. That's been going on for several years
Right.
now. Yeah.
So, NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration has and soon will not have a maritime facility over in Norfolk. Most people don't realize that their fallback location for bringing in their ships is Coast Guard base Portsmouth. There's a really close relationship between the two. With that closing, I anticipate there's going to be a lot more use of facilities over at base Portsmouth by NOAA ships coming into the harbor. The ships that are there currently are 270-foot medium endurance cutters. They're going to be replaced with 330-foot vessels, offshore patrol cutters, and that's directly translates into longer piers, more support staff, more crew on board each vessel. So, and did you guys want to talk at all about Suffolk J7 or joint staff?
We can mention that there's been reports in the press. Again, nothing has officially come out that said that the J7, which is the function that is currently out, or one of the functions that is currently out at the old JIFCOM complex out in Suffolk, that they may do away with the J7 altogether. In those same reports, so it said they may also move 1,000 folks off the joint staff and move them down to Suffolk. So again, it's everything is trying to like nail Jello to the wall right now, with paying attention to all the different reports and things that are coming out there. But yes, that is one of the things we're trying to pay attention to and say, yeah, especially if they do have the Navy Information Forces Command and some other functions that are out there as well. But yeah, the J7 staff, if they go forward with that, could
impact on the church limited and that kind of stuff.
I do want to recognize Jim Cullen, who is with the Portsmouth Mayor's Military Affairs Committee Chair, as also someone speaking today. I just want to make sure I clarify that for anybody watching.
I got you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. These gentlemen are very active in the group known as Association of Defense Communities, and Rick sits on that board. I had the opportunity to attend a meeting back in April in DC. That was the Defense Communities National Summit, where I found a fair amount of civilian and uniform decision makers that run these installations and make decisions about the future of those footprints. So that was a great relationship building opportunity. And in fact, there's an upcoming event out on the West Coast, I believe, the Installation Innovation Forum. Whereas I'm of the understanding that that's a place where some real discussion starts to happen about how these installations are going to be shaped going into the future and how communities can work with those installations to either retain them or find some public-private partnership opportunity associated with it. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah, I'd say the fall conference, the innovation forum is generally one of those, it's more of the good idea sharing, right? Because a lot of the challenges that all of our installations here in the region face are faced by other military installations throughout the country, right? So if one military installation has figured out a way to crack the code on I don't know, childcare or affordable housing or you name it, or IGSAs, these public-private partnerships, those kind of things. It's that forum to kind of share all these good ideas and best practices that hopefully then our community and military leaders bring back to their own installations and try to implement.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one question? Our largest employer in Portsmouth is obviously the Naval Shipyard. Can you say anything about the future of the shipyard?
Well, with only 4 of them in the Navy, we don't see it going anywhere. And in fact, it was one of the things our organization did back in the 2018 National Defense Authorization Act is we wrote and it had our code will insert the language to create the SIOP, the Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Program, which is now the Navy's program of record to invest 22-ish, and the price keeps going up, but
Yeah.
over $20 billion into the 4 Navy public shipyards around the country to modernize their infrastructure. So we could see that, given the importance of getting nuclear subs, nuclear aircraft carriers back out to the fleet as quickly as possible, we don't see that investment going anywhere anytime soon. I don't know, Todd, if you.
No, Rick's right. The money's going in there to modernize the facility, do a lot of upgrades and improvements. A lot of it's already started in the sequence of dry dock works, work that's already been started to make those ready to accept the new class of aircraft carriers, new classes of submarines that are coming in. So a lot of modifications already in the works for that.
What the Navy is doing right now with all 4 of the yards is they've developed digital twins of all of the shipyards, so they can model and simulate how can they best, with the way the workflow is now, recapitalize that infrastructure to help make the operation more efficient. And given the fact that Norfolk Naval is the oldest of all 4, probably the most complicated, they're kind of working the kinks out with some of the other ones first before they go wholesale into a lot of the other recap work here at Norfolk Naval. But we anticipate that will continue.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Councilman Hugel. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to the discussion?
Yeah, a couple things. So to Commissioner Peterman's question, only 2 shipyards that are being facilitized to handle the Ford class carriers, Norfolk and Puget Sound. Norfolk is their carrier dry docks already being modernized with the support services to handle Ford. It's been announced that John F. Kennedy, which is the 2nd ship of the class, is going to be home ported on the West Coast up in Bremerton. And so that their carrier dry dock is set to get the same kind of service modernization as is going on at Norfolk Naval Shipyard now. And then to the Coast Guard thing, and this is really maybe a question to Brian and Charlie, with the growth that we're expecting at Coast Guard base Portsmouth, who looks at the housing demand? What is it, we're gonna see an increase in numbers of sailors and civilians coming in to support the expansion. Is it EDA that's gonna look at that? Is it VPIC that's gonna look at that? Who's gonna take a look at that? Because it would be a shame to lose that opportunity to North Suffolk, for example, when the base is here in Churchland. And we've got a bunch of housing development on the plate in Churchland now. But anticipating the right kind of housing for the folks that are likely to show up. And then we're also looking at capital investment in a new school. Are we building the right school in the right location, given the potential growth that we're going to see in Churchland, and knowing that that those schools are already operating at or beyond capacity, forcing the school system to look at rezoning. So I think we could get out in front of this as we get the information and inform the right folks in the city and maybe in our engagement with housing developers to be kind of moving in the right direction and being in front of this instead of letting happen whatever's going to happen.
I got you. Yeah, I can. And that's a really spot on comment, Councilman Hugel. We are fortunate that Portsmouth currently has over 1,000 housing units under development in pipeline right now. So I think, with that, and we're continuing to work with the development community to add to that pipeline, but what we need to do is make sure that everybody's aware of that, so that when a sailor is coming to be stationed in Portsmouth, they're aware of the opportunity to live here. And we need to communicate that better. So I think what we'll be working to do is, in partnership with our marketing and communications department, make some promotions of all these new communities that are opening. And those are, multifamily housing communities, but also home ownership communities as well. So making sure that they're aware of the opportunity to live here within the city and not commute outside of the boundary.
And perhaps the other chess game that we ought to play is, what are we going to put housing wise in our downtown development that maybe will attract people who are living in single family homes in Churchland, want to move out of those homes into waterfront community and open up homes for first time home buyers maybe that are coming into the Coast Guard base. So now it's time to play chess and not checkers, I guess is my point.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I mean, when all of this started to be announced, and the growth of the 5th Coast Guard District and the footprint here in Portsmouth, we were thinking, how do we capture business that's going to be around to support that growth? But you're right on target. I think there's a great opportunity to form a partnership with the PMAC and other parties to sit down with the leadership at the Coast Guard base Portsmouth and point out these opportunities more succinctly, so that as that flow begins to happen, we've got ambassadors or whoever that could be on standby to either personally give these folks a tour or put them in the hands of the right individual that can lead them to a housing unit that may be attractive. So that's a great opportunity for us to work together.
There's a housing officer, who they could be working with, but also I'd love to see it as part of the onboarding process for new personnel.
Yeah.
Just to say, here's your options, in the area, and break the cycle of what's happened in the past, unfortunately, that people were being told by their sponsors, here's where you're gonna work, but you should live, wherever else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Brian, may I add something? Well, so a lot of working with the real estate community as well. So the majority of what we do is more on the commercial side of the real estate, but a lot of people overlap between residential and commercial. So as we're out at all these different events and we're hosting and we're talking to the private side real estate individuals, we're often sharing all the good stuff that's happening in Portsmouth. So when they're working, I did real estate during COVID, and I actually sold a number of homes to people coming, mostly Navy and Coast Guard coming into our area. But we work a lot with real estate individuals and just letting them know the good things that are happening in Portsmouth. So as they're working with military men and women coming to the area, they have a favorable outlook of Portsmouth. So that's another thing that we also kind of do as we're moving about the city.
What I do wanna stress is that, to Councilman Hugel's point, there is gonna be a new school. And I think it would be, an opportunity for, as everybody's at the table, the superintendent or somebody from his team are at the table as well, so that, maybe where they may be thinking about putting the school may not be the most priority point for them. So I think as we're having these conversations, because education is important when people are looking for a place to raise their families, that we don't miss that opportunity to have someone from the Portsmouth Public School Board engaged as a former school board member with a current school board member at our table here. Let's not miss that opportunity as well to include them as they're making their plans and you're making your plans. Make sure that those plans can be parallel together. Did you want to add anything to that, Madam Treasurer?
You said it.
If I may have one of those things, and this came up during not this past 2025 General Assembly session, but last year General Assembly session, was led by Newport News. We supported it though, but they created or allowed localities within Virginia to create special military economic opportunity zones, I think is what they were calling them. Driven by, the issues they have with some of the quality of life, quality of service issues around Newport News shipbuilding, there in downtown Newport News. But it's open to any locality to create these special economic opportunity zones to try and bring in businesses that are then going to serve service members, but obviously then serve the larger population as well. And as part of the SHIPS Act, which has been introduced in Congress to try and spur national shipbuilding again, they've also mentioned being able to create special maritime opportunity zones. No details yet on how that'll work, but again, to be able to provide economic incentives, it may be an opportunity for localities in this region.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. We appreciate it. It was very informative. On to our next order of business. We have old business, which is always new to me. We have our Port of Virginia update.
Thank
Chris, how are
Yeah,
you?
Good morning. Thank you. And yeah, Rick, Todd, thanks for the update. That was a great update. Great discussion here at the table around what Harumpha is doing and obviously the importance to each of us here in the region of their work. So thank you for the update. At the port, we just in the month of May, we were fortunate we do an annual State of the Port event. We had another successful State of the Port. A number of individuals from the city of Portsmouth participated in the 2-day, 3-day event that took place here in the waterfront area as well as down the oceanfront of Virginia Beach. But it's a nice opportunity for us annually to provide both local customers throughout the country updates on what's going on here at the port and letting our stakeholders and customers see firsthand all of the development activity, which has been very promising, as we all know, as we continue to experience healthy volumes and tremendous interest here in the city of Portsmouth, as well as throughout the region in investing in infrastructure and in real estate and trying to capture more cargo here for the Hampton Roads market. So we're really happy how the State of the Port went, and it was a great event. Obviously, we track current news headlines, and that's something we obviously get questioned about quite often and frequently around tariffs and disruption. Granted, disruption is sort of what we've become accustomed to in operating. We are active and busy. The port is still maintained healthy volume levels. And we will continue to track and continue to, deal with sort of the ebbs and flows of the freight, as we will experience that for weeks to come. I tell you, one of the things that, we've come out to the market to let people know, what's the exposure from the Port of Virginia's perspective to freight coming from China and Hong Kong. And when we look at our overall volume, only about 19% of our cargo originates from those origins. So granted, that's a lot of cargo, yet it's not nearly as significant as other ports up and down the coast, or of course on the West Coast, where they have a much greater exposure to impacts on tariffs and the Chinese cargo. So again, tracking that, and it'll be something for the next weeks, months to come. We will continue to be actively tracking and working with our customers to find solutions. Just to hone in, exciting things going on at PMT, as I continue to always talk about updates at Portsmouth Marine Terminal. The Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project is well underway. Exciting that today we're actually working 2 vessels offloading components. So we have a delivery of monopiles that showed up over the weekend. The Sunrise, I think, came in yesterday. 6 monopiles. Again, to refresh your memory, those are the foundation elements that go into the seabed. And so we have 8 coming off. But we also have our first delivery of tower section. So this is the above water section that will actually hold the nacelle and subsequent blades. And so we are receiving the tower sections today as well, are being offloaded. So we're working 2 vessels there at PMT. It's kind of neat to see, because this is how, this was the plan. This is when we had those discussions years back with our partner at Dominion Energy. This is what we envisioned PMT to be servicing. And so it's happening as we speak. We'll now start receiving tower sections, and then subsequent blades will also begin to arrive along with nacelles throughout the summer. So it's been very busy at PMT, but it's about to, double down, I guess, is what I would say, when we start thinking about the components, different components, and just the level of activity happening there at Portsmouth Marine Terminal. So that's all great news. And we're excited to see that activity. I know I see on the agenda, Brian will mention the event taking place later this week, but definitely excited to see the groundbreaking with a great customer at DeLong and one of our big partners, CSX, there at their site in Portsmouth. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this point, and I'll end my remarks.
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Sure, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Chris, thanks for the update as always. A lot of great information. Specifically on CVAL, do we have a timeline for when the Charybdis Dominion's installation vessel may arrive in Hampton Roads? Or
I wish Mr. Hansen was here. I would, second half of this year, I understand it, we very well may see it in the harbor. I know it is like doing sea trials, and and it has been announced that it'll be home ported here. And so I would expect that in the second half of this current calendar year, we will at some point see it start, servicing the actual installation of the top side. So the tower, nacelle blades, because granted, Dominion's got a pretty aggressive timeline that they need to stay on. And so to meet that timeline, they're going to have to start installing those top sides, from what I understand, this calendar year of 2025.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. That's, really exciting opportunity for Portsmouth, and to have that home port here in our community is a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Can I ask another question? With all the technology upgrades that you've had at the terminal, do you
Yes.
ever see a reason that you're going to build on Craney Island for another terminal?
Well, it is, the only comment I have is it's part of our long-term master plan. That is a terminal identified in that plan. We constantly are, working to update that plan. And so I wouldn't have any comment different than what's in the plan. And it's identified as a future marine terminal by all means, making that our, I guess, 7th. I'm doing my math, sorry, in my head here. That'd be our 7th facility that we operate. But by all means, they continue to, work on that front side of Craney Island Marine Terminal by placing dredge material, and they're building up, as you've seen, that the dikes, and then they'll put a cross levee in there to sort of continue to build that up. And by all means, that's the effort underway.
Well, after listening to Rick and all this reasons for land to build submarines and pieces and whatevers, I'm just wondering if the land in Craney Island might have a better purpose than a terminal that you may never need.
Well, I mean, those aren't discussions I'm privy. I would say we could forecast our volume out in such a manner that at a point, that capacity will continue to be necessary for future growth at the Port of Virginia.
But you haven't done that arithmetic yet.
Well, I think we have. Again, I think that's part of our future long-term plan. It ties back to, it is definitely going to be demand driven. And so there's going to be that point where demand will begin to require the added supply of what Crane Island Marine Terminal will provide to the Port of Virginia's capacity.
Do you have any idea what year that might be?
Well, again, I can send you the plan. I think it's a I think it's 2050 plan is what I believe it is. It's found on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much for your presentation. On to the next City Council PPIC joint meeting is July 7th, 2025. Brian?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is really just a reminder for the group that we do have the July 7th meeting on the calendar with City Council. We will be working with yourself and the rest of the commissioners to develop that agenda for the meeting. So certainly be coming up with some topics of discussion so we can share priorities and initiatives that the PPIC is going to be carrying forward for the remainder of the calendar year.
Thank you.
So do you have a presentation you're gonna make, or are we gonna make, or how's that gonna work?
That is a work in progress, but really looking for your direction as the board of what you want to discuss with the city council and what topics you would like to include in the agenda. And staff is happy to support with the presentation as needed.
So if there's any topics that you wish to discuss with council, please forward those so that we can be as best prepared as possible. Councilman, is there anything in particular that you'd like us to present
Yeah,
to
I
your
think
counterparts?
the discussions that we're aiming to have at these work sessions are to mesh the priorities of boards and commissions with the priorities of that council has spelled out as a result of our spring retreat. And so it's your opportunity to make those connections and also to ask for any help that you might need from city council in order to pursue your priorities.
Thank you. Next up, the CSX DeLong Rail Transloading Facility at 1 Harper Avenue. The groundbreaking event is upcoming. Brian?
It is upcoming. It's imminent. So in fact, it's this Thursday, May 29th. That will be held on site at the CSX Intermodal Yard at 1 Harper Avenue. I believe invitations have gone out to the board. Some of you have RSVPs, but it's not too late to do so if you haven't already. That will be occurring at 10 a.m. It'll run to about noon. You can see the information about the event is on the overhead there. The actual kickoff time for the groundbreaking will be 11 o'clock, but they will be serving a light breakfast with networking opportunities being made. Encourage you all to attend. If you need directions or any additional information, please let staff know. But we hope to see you out there. This is an exciting opportunity to kind of take the CSX Intermodal Yard, which has not been active in recent years, and really turn it into a world-class export facility for grains and agricultural products. So DeLong will be investing approximately $40 million in this new facility, bringing, I want to say, about 15 new employees to Portsmouth as well. And this is going to be a busy site here very soon, as we'll be handling significant rail traffic that will be then transloaded into containers for export through the port. And that will be to global markets. So really pretty exciting project that you all have supported directly with some of the applications that are being pursued for grant funding that the city council has also supported as well. So we're excited. We're looking forward to having their leadership in town. I do believe we'll have Secretary Miller, Secretary of Transportation here, as well as some other state cabinet. So we look forward to seeing you then.
Righty?
Brian, could you engage the clerk's office on timing? Because the invite that council got was for 0900,
Okay.
9 to 10, actually.
We will,
So,
we will.
yeah, we'll have a whole bunch of folks there with nothing to do. What, maybe help make breakfast on the show.
We will follow up immediately after this meeting. Thank you for that.
On to new business, the Portsmouth Mayor's Military Affairs Committee update.
Yes, Madam Chair, before I put the chairman of the PMAC group on the spot, I'll sort of have some remarks. I continually be impressed with this particular group and the quality of individuals that are around the table every month that are ready to go to work for the city of Portsmouth. Interestingly, the consistency of the uniform leadership of these installations is always present, which provides a great opportunity for folks like us to build a relationship and work on things such as housing and other opportunities that are out there. So it's been a real pleasure to be part of that group, and I know that Chairman Cullen has really injected a sense of urgency and upbeat tempo to the group. In fact, we had our last meeting, the PMAC meeting, on the 15th of May, where we discussed a lot of things, not the least of which is the Hampton Roads Alliance focus on defense industries and how we can attract more opportunities around that, given the Harumfa remarks. We did have our joint meeting of all three MEDAC groups, if you will, Portsmouth, Norfolk, and Virginia Beach, on the 19th, where we rightfully bragged about the new $40 million investment to the group that's upcoming announcement on Thursday. But with that, I'll share with Jim the opportunity to speak or to say something for the group.
Nothing really to add other than just to, I guess perhaps for a lot of people, bring attention to the fact that this organization exists. It's not really an organization, it's an ad hoc meeting monthly of all of the military commands in the area, but representatives from a variety of other, whether it's the schools, city department heads, folks who are stakeholders in the continuity of Portsmouth as a military family and military facility support community. And it's hard to draw the line between, things that are happening overseas and things that are happening right here in our city sometimes for us to recognize that. But the importance of supporting our military personnel, the families of the military personnel, the spouses, the businesses that support them, has a direct impact on our military readiness and our ability to operate, both locally and internationally. And unfortunately, sometimes that gets a little bit siloed. They don't have, meaning these military commands don't have the opportunity to get together in one location to have some informal conversation, but also an opportunity to interact face to face with, let's say, the chief of police, little things like that. We've been able to get some of those Venn diagrams, the overlap in one spot once a month. And it leads to some interesting things, like, for example, finding out that some military personnel were involved in some of the street takeovers that have been going on. Now we're overlapping into the crime commission here. And it turns out that in that meeting is a member of the magistrate on the base who makes decisions on who can drive on and off the base. So if you get caught on one of the city's block cameras Suddenly you're not going to be engaged in these street takeovers. You're not driving on the military base. It's just another way of getting people together who might not have ever had the opportunity to speak. So it's very, very valuable. I'm extremely happy to have Charlie on board as well, coming from where he was in Virginia Beach, because in a lot of the other cities in the area, military and economic development are one entity. Here, you got the Military Affairs Committee, you've got economic development, but I'm very happy that we're able to work in such close partnership. Basically present that same face that other cities are accustomed to having. So, thank you for letting us just be here, but also thank you for being a part of.
Thanks for your leadership.
It's that communication which is so vital to helping lift this up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, share another example. So, we invited, the Military Affairs Committee invited Elizabeth River Crossing to come to a Military Affairs Committee meeting to talk about toll relief. The military leadership in our city had no idea about toll relief. But it turns out quite a few folks who are in the military don't make enough money to cross the threshold, which means that they qualify for toll relief. So having the opportunity to bring ERC in, share with the military leadership, here's what the program's all about. These are the thresholds. Here's how you can get your sailors to apply, has kind of opened up a doorway that otherwise they simply would have been ignorant of. And so it's remarkable to me sometimes sit in those meetings and figure out what somebody knows that nobody else knows. Sometimes it's one military CO who knows things that his or her peers don't know. But there are times when the city knows things that they don't know, the military knows things that we don't know.
Right.
And so it's just been a really important opportunity to share information.
And another topic that just came up recently in this meeting here was childcare, military childcare specifically. So for example, we learned of a private daycare that is closing, that is within eyesight of the Coast Guard 5th District and Atlantic Area headquarters, which seems insane when at the same time, the federal government is paying for people to establish private home care because there's such a demand for military, childcare. So we were able to put some people in touch with each other because the one didn't know the other's existence. And it looks like, fingers crossed, we're going to be able to get someone to occupy that space or to assist them in that location. And I can't say too much about it, but the point is that it looks like there's going to be a daycare that will eventually roll back into, an operation that'll be able to support the Atlantic area headquarters. But these are people who didn't meet or would not have met if not for the existence of that group and that committee. So that's why we're always listening. I'm listening to all these things because we're trying to figure out how to put people in touch with each other. And that's probably what it's mostly about, is just putting people in touch with each other and saying, hey, let's make these connections and then let the magic happen on its own.
Wonderful.
And then,
Thank you.
one more point to follow up on. So Charlie mentioned MEDAC. MEDAC is the Military Economic Development Advisory Committee. Virginia Beach has one, Norfolk has one. Our Military Affairs Committee serves as our representative into those conversations. We have a joint session with the other two communities, military leadership teams, once a quarter. The next one actually is being hosted here in Portsmouth on the 15th of September. We'll plan on doing it out of Rivers Casino. Each time we do those, we invite the three cities' economic development offices to share updates of what's happening in their communities. At the one in September hosted here, we will invite the local installation commanders to provide updates on things that are happening at the Navy Yard, at the hospital, at the Coast Guard base Portsmouth. They're opportunities if you all choose to join in to come and listen to what's going on. So you may want to put that on your calendar of things that to think about joining in on.
And then the last thing I just want to say about the group that most people are probably not tracking is one of the things that we've gotten involved in over the past couple of years is coordinating military volunteers here in the community. So, for example, topical since we had the parade yesterday, that was run, a very large percentage of it was run by military volunteers. From the starting line right through the end of the parade. It was military volunteers coordinated by the Military Affairs Committee. If you see that the kids, I say, because they're mostly young, in the yellow vests who are running around helping at nonprofit events here in the downtown, at concerts, at schools, things like that, those are all people who are coordinated by the Military Affairs Committee. So you'll see they have a little thing on it says PMAC or Portsmouth Military Affairs Committee, but they are volunteers coordinated by us who are then volunteering for whoever that nonprofit museum school may be. Last year, they gave 6,500 hours back to the city of Portsmouth, the equivalent of 3 full-time equivalent employees doing nonprofit activities here in the city. And here's how that magic happens. They actually become invested in the community because they come off the base, they come out of the barracks, and next thing you know, they're living over the top of Jimmy John's, or next thing you know, they're living right out here at the Seaboard Rail Building, or so on and so forth, because, or moving back here from Virginia Beach to buy a home, because they've actually become invested in the city, which undoes the damage that's happened since 2001, when military personnel were told, stay on your base, don't go out in the community for security purposes. Now we're trying to get it back to be a part of the community, and then when they retire or get out of the service, maybe we now have them as part of our local workforce. So it's all kind of handy.
Thank you. Our next update is the waterfront development update. Brian?
Yes, Chair. We had a request to provide an update on the development of the city's waterfront, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, has been talked about since I can remember, starting most seriously in the early 2000s. And when we talk about the waterfront, we're really talking about 2 different locations. The first is what we are referring to as Crawford Bay, and for those who've been in Portsmouth a while, that's the location of the former Holiday Inn site. But it's about a 6-acre property that is under the ownership of the Economic Development Authority and City of Portsmouth. And we've had a study completed over the last year for its development potential, which you can see here is shown on the slide. It's pretty significant. The opportunity for over $360 million in new investment, which would bring this property to a revenue generating position. Right now, these properties are not paying taxes because they're owned by the city. So our goal is to get these into the hands of private ownership, where we could generate some real development opportunities and investment. So what would that look like? Well, it really would be a mixed use development project where we would have over 300 units of multifamily housing. That could be a mixture of apartments and condo units. The opportunity for a 180 room hotel, which has been supported by the market analysis. The Renaissance is performing very well. In fact, so well that they're in need of additional hotel rooms, which currently are being lost to other markets. Those stays are going to Norfolk or Chesapeake, or even Suffolk. So looking to bring a new hotel to the waterfront. Also looking at opportunities for commercial retail, restaurant uses, as well as entertainment as well. And a need for a new parking garage. The Harbor Court parking garage is in need of replacement, which would be incorporated into any new project there. So really complete remake and re-envisioning of what that property could be. We are working and talking with Suntex, which is the owner of the marina, Tidewater Yacht Marina, just next door, working to make sure that our visions line up. And we'll be working through the development process to ensure that the community is aware of having opportunities for input as well. So we're currently bringing on a real estate consultant to help package this opportunity for the development community to market that and get the word out that this site is ready for development. So the goal is to have that solicitation package out on the street by the end of the calendar year, if not sooner. Happy to report that we do have some city council members that have been appointed to a project team to help see this through to fruition. So the mayor, Mayor Glover, and Councilman Hugel are both recently appointed to serve on a project team, if you will, to help the EDA move this forward. We're excited about that. I'd like to provide Councilman Hugel an opportunity, Chair, if it's okay, to
Absolutely.
just kind of share his thoughts, because this is an identified priority of the city council. We're fortunate to be working together.
Thanks, Brian. So, maybe of interest to you all. You'll note that where the blue line is drawn doesn't include this. So I've suggested to the EDA, and we're gonna have discussion amongst city council to extend the blue line to include, because when the city did the refurb of the waterfront, this whole area all the way down to High Street Landing is basically unusable. So for example, we have 3 tall ships slated to come into Portsmouth next year during sale 250. And we're gonna have to do extraordinary things to get those 3 tall ships tied up along our waterfront, because when we redid the waterfront, we didn't make accommodations for power, potable water, sewer. So we're gonna tie ships up, and then I guess we're gonna bring in barges to give them water and take away their black water, because there's no mechanism to do that. Additionally, just getting on and off the ships, where we're gonna tie up the ships, is gonna present some challenges that we have to work through. So as we're moving forward on discussions, not only for this part of the waterfront, but also this part of the waterfront, things like that need to be factored into the desirements that we have, so that we don't box ourselves in and discover that we're missing opportunities to bring ships and boats into our waterfront that can't use our waterfront because we're myopic in our approach.
So how do we as a PPIC get inputs into this plan?
Yes. So
So if Ben wants to have a cruise terminal built here, he could do that?
well, but the PPIC ought to have their list of desirements to Brian and Charlie and me, because all 3 of us will be participating in the work that the EDA is doing to assemble the list of desirements that's going to go into the RFP. So the EDA, as the slide says, EDA is in the process of hiring a consultant to assemble the desirements into the RFP that we then advertise to developers, so that what we get is what we want and not what the developer wants to give us. That's the idea.
So if we want to have, places where they can put their brows over along the seawall, we want 3 electrical connections and 3 sewer pipes and 3 water connections. We need to come up with that kind of specificity, or what?
I don't know that it needs to be that specific, but saying we need to have some number of locations where ships or boats of a particular size. And so now we're thinking maybe ACL or tall ships, or, I mean, we can go back and imagine what's likely to tie up here. Okay, Carnival's not likely to tie up here, but there are things that do tie up or could tie up if we're thoughtful and build those desirements into, our vision for what the waterfront could do, to help, stimulate business for Portsmouth.
So if I can just add to the conversation here, we actually had a meeting on Friday of last week, myself and Charlie and Commissioner Foster had a introductory call with American Cruise Lines, which is currently calling on Portsmouth. They actually have about 15 dockings scheduled for this calendar year, but they'd like to increase that number. And the conversation was directly related to and focusing on the things that you mentioned, having accessibility to fresh water, as well as needs for sewage or electrical connections that may be beneficial to their visits. And so these things are being talked about, and we are working with American Cruise Lines to come up with a plan for accommodating their ships when they call on Portsmouth. And it sounds like it's a relatively small ask. Essentially, they're looking for a water connection. And they do feel like there's an ability to increase the number of calls that they make on Portsmouth, and even possibly adding a second ship dock here on water.
Is that the boats? Are those the boats that dock down at One High Street?
Yes, right at High Street Landing. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Exactly.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could please, throw this idea out here, because as this discussion starts heading in a certain direction of making the waterfront more attractive, bringing more boats here, we begin edging into or revealing the fact that we don't have a harbor master function here in the city. And in many cities, you will have a harbor master or something named with a different name but the same function. Basically, the person who decides all of these things. Whose turn is it to dock in this location at this time? Who gets the water hookup? Who gets the, you know, the who can drop anchor in city controlled waters? And perhaps there's a way to bake that into future development as a relatively low cost, but having someone whose job it is to keep an eye on what's going on out of the water and say, you can't leave this boat anchored in this location for more than a certain number of hours, because that's what eventually turns into junk boats that wash up against the waterfront. Or you can tie up here, once we improve this basin, you can tie up here for 24 hours or 40 hours or whatever the local ordinances are, and you can hook up the power or whatever it may be, but you can't live there, that type of thing. So that would all fall under one function. Now, where that belongs, honestly, I think it belongs under a commission of some type. Right now, it's being handled by the police department as 11th on their list of 10 things to do. So, the idea of having the commission or some other entity within city government run a harbor master function here in the city. That's, in my mind, has to be baked into any plans to make the waterfront more attractive and to bring in more boats and to bring in more overnight docking and all that kind of stuff. So just throwing the idea out there for consideration.
Thank you. Did you wish to add in?
No other comments about the Crawford Bay project. There is a long-term vision to redevelop the Civic Center complex as well, which is a little more of a complicated scenario just because of the active uses that are present on the property. For instance, City Hall would need to be relocated, but we feel like that is a 3 to 5 year plan and a second phase of development that could occur there, which is actually a larger site than the Crawford Bay site. So if you look at the investment figures, I mean, this is a really huge potential there that is untapped. And again, the most prime real estate in the city on the waterfront. And we've had non-revenue generating uses there for decades. So the goal is to get those on the tax rolls with developments that would contribute to the city's future.
Is there a timeline for all this?
So phase one is underway now. As mentioned, the EDA has been working to get a consultant on board to begin the process of advertising the property for development, which we would hope to have out in the marketplace by the end of the calendar year, potentially having a developer on board in 2026. And again, the Civic Center, we're probably talking more of a kind of a 3 to 5 year plan for that to occur there. But the beginning steps and work is underway. So relocating the city jail to the regional jail, that facility, there's a plan for demolishing and clearing that property. There's work underway to see about how we relocate City Hall. So these things are in the early stages. The work is being done to position the property from.
It'd be great to see a draft timeline for this, so we know what kind of priorities or inputs we need when.
So that exists. The EDA is, their role in managing that project is actively preparing and following the schedule. That exists.
Okay.
Okay. Next item submitted by commissioners. I don't have any, do you?
Staff has not received any other additional items for discussion, Chair.
Just a reminder for any items for the agenda for the joint council PPIC meeting, please forward those. And do we have any report backs?
No report backs.
Okay. We have worked through our agenda. Wish everyone a great day. This meeting is adjourned.